All right, welcome to the Rich Celenza Show. I'm Rich Celenza. WTF are you talking about? So I have a special guest today. She goes by DEMI CELENZA. She doesn't like Celenza. That's my youngest daughter, actually. I think a lot of people, if you know me, would know my daughter. I actually have two daughters. Not a lot of people know that, unless you're a family member or a close friend. But, wow, listen to that loud audio. It's a motorcycle. Anyways, so, yeah. So I'm sitting here with my youngest daughter, Demi. And one of the reasons I have her here today is because I want to touch on a subject regarding something that she went through or is still going through. And so for starters, I have an older daughter that when she was younger, she ended up having to have a liver transplant. So to make a long story short, my youngest daughter really never had anything really as far as physical, any issues whatsoever. She was actually kind of a machine, very seldom ever sick. She was always on the go, very healthy, which was wonderful. So to make a long story short, when she turned, I want to say 16?
I was 16.
So my daughter turned 16 and she went to, where'd you go, Tampa?
We went to, I forgot what it's called. It starts with a V. It was a beach.
Vero Beach?
Vero Beach.
All right. So my daughter came to visit me, and she didn't look very good. And she's very thin to begin with. So, not that that's a bad thing. But she's very thin to begin with, but this time she looked extremely thin. And we were all kind of like looking at her going, wow, she's, what is it? Did she change her eating habits? We know she's not anorexic because she loves eating. And when I say eating, she loves eating everything, right? Wouldn't you say?
I love food.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people thought she was anorexic. She's not. Now, so on the flip side, she went with my girlfriend, Rhea, and her daughter, Madison, to an event, right? Mm-hmm. And what happened? You could tell them. You tell them.
There's this... So pretty much when you get diabetes, a lot of times
we didn't even tell them you have diabetes yet.
Oh, shoot.
That's all right. I want to lead into that. But
okay,
anyways,
let's turn it off.
No. Keep it on. It's perfect. It's a good intro. So my daughter has diabetes 1.
Type 1 diabetes.
Type 1 diabetes, I'm sorry. But tell them how this all led to this so they have an idea of what we went through. Like how this kind of caught us off guard.
Well, so there's this thing called diabetic ketoacidosis. And pretty much what happens is if your blood sugar gets high enough, you make ketones. And then your ketones flush out first all the protein. Or all the sugars in your body is just pretty much being pushed through your pee. So I was peeing a lot. I couldn't stop drinking water, any type of liquid. I felt really bad for Rhea because every 15 minutes I was like, we need to stop because I have to pee and we're trying to get home from Vero Beach. And so pretty much, I dropped down, I think it was just 78 pounds. And I'm usually 95. So I'm already pretty thin, but I am 5'6". So I'm already pretty underweight. Like your skin just really dries out. You get very weak. I could honestly barely stand at that point. And so then, I finally went to the hospital and I found out I had type 1 diabetes.
Right. So when she came back from Vero Beach, I was out of a fluke with one of my friends who has a PhD and very involved, obviously, with a lot of things medically. She came to eat with us. I think we went to Payway. But when I saw her, she just was sunken in. Her face, everything. And she was so weak she couldn't even stand up. Now, at this point in time, we're not thinking my daughter has any, we didn't know. We're just like, wow, man, she's just got to up her diet or what the... And sometimes you even start thinking about your children. Are they on drugs? Are they doing something? Are they anorexic? And it's just like, are they throwing up? Or what do they call that again? I can't remember.
Bulimic.
Yeah, like you don't know what your kids do. We don't know what our kids do behind our backs. We're not with them 24 hours a day. So even my friend Kevin said, you have to get her to the doctor immediately. So I said, yeah. And then the next morning came around, and that's when I think you talked to your mother, and then she took, her to the, not the emergency room.
I went first to like a Centra Care clinic, and then they told me to go to a hospital, to an ER.
Right. So I got a text from her mother, who's incredible in every which way, and said, we think she has diabetes, I don't even think she knew if it was 1 or 2 at that point. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, we knew from the beginning. Yeah,
maybe I don't remember.
Because type 2 it was impossible.
Yeah, that's impossible, right? With obesity, whatever. So I just got extremely, I got to say at that moment in time, because going through what I went through with my first daughter, there was, when you have a sick child, and my number one rule is never, when somebody else gets sick and you think you're going to take on the burden, I'm going to say it right now, you're an asshole. You're not going through that. They are. Don't make it about you. I firmly believe that. And a lot of people, when they are dealing with somebody else who's sick, starts to make it about them. They don't even realize it. Right? Wouldn't you say a lot of times? So my number one thing was never to make it about me. It was always about getting my daughter healthy. You got to kind of spin it, right? It's not, again, no matter what I'm going through, I don't care if it's emotionally, mentally, financially, it's really, you just have to accept it and do your best to get them healthy. That's the number one goal. But in this situation, I'm going to admit, I very seldom get aggravated to the level I got aggravated that day. Thank God nobody was around me, because it was almost like a trigger, I guess you could say, because I felt so bad for, really, my daughter probably didn't even know this, for both of my daughters, because of what they both, I knew what, and my oldest daughter still, what she goes through, obviously just having, being on meds her entire life, and I never gone through what she went through emotionally, physically, everything. It's a life-changing experience, not only for me, for them, but then for both of your children. And I kind of thought about making it about me again, right? That's how I started to make it about me, because I was like, not as a victim. I actually don't think I'm a victim type person. I get aggravated and extremely angry, right? Mm-hmm. And then when I went then they rushed her to the hospital. You were in there how many days?
I was only in there for 3 days, I think. 2 days.
And it was Father's Day. Mm-hmm. When I had to go visit her the next day, and I was just, I was out of my mind. And what's very interesting, this just recently happened too. My mother, younger sister, she has, or her one right underneath her, my aunt, she has 4 children, and my other cousin, 2 of my cousins out of her children, their kids also have diabetes 1, right?
Type 1 diabetes.
Type 1 diabetes, I'm sorry. Which is very ironic, because we don't know anyone in our family that has ever had diabetes. No one ever that we know of had liver transplant, or had liver issues, right? In my family, it was heart disease more driven. So the whole thing kind of, it's just a unique type thing, right? Wouldn't you say? Between your cousins and you all having that. And they're all very close in age to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. So anyways, what else?
I don't know. One thing that, even though I have diabetes and getting it was hard at first, the one thing that I really don't like is pity. And, if somebody ever approaches me and they're like, what is that on your hip? Because I wear an insulin pump, and I say an insulin pump, they're immediately like, sorry. And it makes me very mad. I don't look for pity with this, and I don't think anybody with type 1 diabetes really wants that. The only thing we really want is understanding, because sometimes, it could be frustrating for not only me, but for whoever I'm with or anything like that. If something goes wrong with my pump, the infusion site doesn't work, and I totally understand if other people get frustrated with it. But all I look for is understanding and never pity. So if you, ever know somebody or meet somebody with any type of chronic illness, don't pity them. That's pretty much all I want to say on that. Because that's my main thing. Don't say, I'm so sorry. It's a part of who I am now, and to me, I don't know what life would be without it. So, at this point, I don't know. It's hard sometimes, but it's a part of who I am now. It doesn't define me, but it's a part of me. And so, I wouldn't change the fact that I have it, because it does help me be healthier. It does help me, keep myself away from dumb situations. And I don't know. It's not a bad thing to me anymore.
Right. And when we first were able to take her out for dinner, I remember, that was a bad day. Yeah. Because I went with me, my father, who has no idea about anything regarding this, and it's not his fault. He's not even, but it was, we mainly eat Italian food, me and my father, and we went to an Italian restaurant, and My daughter grew up eating Italian foods constantly, but to see her go through it the first time, and there was a lot of things running through my head. One is because this could have happened when she was born, and I couldn't even imagine my life having one daughter, because the first year my oldest daughter was in the hospital almost as much as she was out the first year, if you included her transplant surgery. So, and then we had another daughter, her right after. They're only 14 months apart. If I had to go through both of them, our whole life would have been entirely different, because then we ended up living in Florida, Orlando. Our whole life was geared around fun. It was like going to Disney World or Magic Kingdom. All the parks, including water parks. Blizzard Beach, Typhoon Lagoon, right, wouldn't you say? Epcot, we did Wet n Wild, we did Universal Studios, Islands of Adventure, our whole life. Where sometimes I look at, it's kind of interesting, like, did God spare us that much time so we can do all those things? Because if I had to regulate my daughter to that level, even her going through school, middle school, even most of high school, having to go through what you went through, it would have been an entirely different lifestyle, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. The one thing, though, since I was 16 when I was diagnosed, I was able to do everything myself. I taught myself, but one of the hard things when I first got diagnosed was not having somebody else to kind of consult about things, if that makes sense, unless I would call my doctor, because nobody else knew.
Right.
So that was the one thing that was a little frustrating, but I was very lucky to have, until I was 16 years old, to not have diabetes, because like you said, it would have affected life for everybody very differently.
Yeah, and I think, it's funny how I've gotten both sides of this. So I work out a ton. I very seldom ever get sick. I'm kind of obsessed with fitness and working out and things. And my ex-wife's a really incredible physical specimen. She's like 5'10", very strong, mentally, physically, wouldn't you say? Mm-hmm. So when people hear that I had two daughters going through what they went through, they're like, wow, Rich, I would have never expected that coming from you two, because we were both so athletic, right? Or what, you don't think sometimes people are going to get together, have children that are going to end up being ill. And
both of our things were...
Absolutely. Right, go ahead.
They were not anything that was like what you or her or
of
anything...
Course.
They were just, like, mine was triggered. They don't know what the trigger is, but Type 1 Diabetes, and she was just born with a bad liver.
Right.
It just happens.
It just happens.
And, I think, honestly, everybody has their thing where they're going to struggle in something. Nobody's perfect, and so, it's a part of life. Like, you're not going to get through life without having nothing happen to you that you don't want to. So.
Absolutely.
And you just have to make the best of every situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what's interesting is most people who found out Demi had this, they were always like, oh, thank God it's her, because she can handle it. Oh, thank God she has the perfect personality to deal with that. And I sometimes I'd be like, that's not good for anybody to deal with, like, in my mind. Why would my daughters... you sometimes become self-centered when it's your kids, because and I still go through this, because... One of my other cousins who I'm like a brother with told me like we were discussing earlier, his son may possibly, or he does have diabetes 1, and he's only a teenager. He's younger than Demi. I think he might be 12 or 13. And when I got the text with that, I immediately got upset again, and I was shocked, because I even used to live with him, and his son is almost like, I'm like his uncle, and I love him very much. And I sometimes look at things when people are sick as it being torture, right? Or a sympathy type thing where it's going to kind of ruin everything for them. And that's not the case, what you say.
That's one thing, yeah. That's
right?
One thing people struggle to understand sometimes, is that diabetes is such a small part of my life. And it's going to be such a small part of Ethan's life, because it's literally... Once you get used to having the fact, once it becomes so routine and so normal to you, it's like you don't, like, it's not something you think about anymore. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm eating 60 carbs, let me bolus, let me take 4 units of insulin.
Right.
It's not like, oh, like, you do have your hard time still. Like, of course, like, if sometimes my infusion site will be bad, and then, like, my blood sugar will go really high, and then I can't stop peeing, I can't stop drinking. But, like, it just becomes so normal to you. Like, it's nothing that like, anybody can handle it, really. In my opinion, like, once you get used to it, it's just something that's a part of you.
And it's become so far, it's gone so far. It's so much more advanced than it was even 20 years ago,
yeah,
right?
for
That's the
sure.
different thing.
It's something that, like, people, it's not the worst thing. I could have gotten hit with something so much worse. I'm thankful that it's diabetes over something like cancer. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
I could have gotten it so much worse than I did.
I remember when I was at the hospital with my daughter, and she thought I was livid. And I'm not, I was trying to hold it together,
Oh, you
right?
did hold it together. I didn't know that.
A lot of times when you're, I had to learn that with my first daughter, like, you're being positive, want to kick it in the ass for them, and you're being strong, but then behind closed doors, you're breaking down, sometimes crying. You go through all these different emotional roller coasters. One minute you're in a rage, next minute you're crying, next minute you don't want to talk to anybody, and next minute, who knows what you're going to get that day. But with my daughter, I was trying to hold it together the best I could. But what I was going to say is, I remember her, when I said, how do you feel about having this? And you said something like, I'm okay with this because I thought I was dying. Remember?
Yeah.
So she went into when I didn't realize how sick she was feeling and what you were going through. I just thought, hey, she lost some weight. Okay. But what you may have been thinking is, I'm dying, right? I'm just saying.
No, I did think that there was something extremely wrong with me.
What did you think it was?
I thought it would, like, I'm dramatic. Like, I'm a hypochondriac. I thought it could have been something like cancer. Because, I lost so much weight so fast. So, like, even, I don't know if I should even be saying this, but, like, when we were driving home from Vero Beach, even being at Vero Beach, I couldn't be 10 minutes away from a bathroom without peeing myself.
No, of course.
And literally, we were driving back. I don't even know if Rhea knows this, but I peed myself. And I had to, like, change my pants in the car secretly in the back because we were only gone from somewhere for 10 minutes before I had to pee myself.
Right. And we're thinking maybe bladder infection.
Yeah, UTI,
Yeah, right. But the weight you're losing, that didn't make sense.
It didn't. So I literally, like, I didn't do it in Vero Beach because but, like, I slept on the toilet for a little bit. Like, for one night I slept on the toilet because I couldn't stop peeing that much, and I couldn't stop drinking to the point where I had a gallon of water next to me.
Right.
I don't know why I'm doing this, but it's just happening.
It's instinct.
And I don't want to say anything because it made it kind of like, I don't know, like, I feel like when I'm sick, I try to put myself in that state of mind, like, oh, it's just in your head, like, just you're healthy, and I always do that when I'm sick. And so then this was just one of those situations where I shouldn't have done that because, yeah, it was bad.
Well, let's take, for instance, you growing up with a sister, an older sister, going through what she's gone through in her life. Because let's face it, all three of us were in the hospital a lot. You even visiting her, or growing up going in and out of her getting her blood work done, right? All these type of things. Do you think that made you look at something differently than, like, look what my sister had to go through, or look, I've already seen what somebody who has to go through something, like, made you stronger through that instead of just kind of being in shock?
Yeah, I think that, like, when they told me, I already assumed, because I did the WebMD thing. So
Right.
it was like, that was one of it popped up like a type of cancer, I think. No, it was some type of disease that was really serious, and then diabetes. And I was like, I didn't really think it would be either, but when the doctor told me that, since that I saw it,
Right.
I was like, that makes sense. It popped up on WebMD. That does not mean listen to WebMD. WebMD is wrong lots of the time.
Right.
But in that situation, it was correct. And so it was just something that was like, when they told me, I knew my cousin had it. I had a friend who had it, and I saw that they were still able to live normal lives, and I was thankful that it wasn't anything serious. Like, obviously, diabetes is still serious. And
Right, but from your sister's perspective, do you think it made you stronger seeing what she went through? Or, because you were in and out of a lot of doctors. We were in more doctor. You just kind of took it upon yourself.
I think that it didn't, I don't know. Because I don't know if it made me stronger or not as strong, because it's what I grew up in. It was my life.
Right.
So it would be different maybe if I did, and I was so young. So
Right.
I don't remember. I remember some of it, but I don't remember all of it. I don't remember.
You remember more of the fun times.
I remember the fun times. I do remember some bad times, but
Sure.
I don't remember, like, her actual liver transplant.
Of course not. You weren't even around. Right.
Yeah, I was
you were a
being
baby.
born.
But
Like,
I'm saying even us going to doctors pretty continuously, even
Yeah.
up until, I mean.
it was normal to me, though. Like,
Right,
you know what I
right.
mean? Because I was young. This was my life. Like, when you're young, you don't know better.
Right.
And I don't think I knew better.
Right, even us going to Gainesville, us going to Chicago
Yeah,
doctors,
it was
all
just
that,
normal.
it was, right.
For me. Because, like, I didn't know. Like, this was my family. That's what my family did.
Right, exactly. I thought maybe you had a different outlook on that just because, you had a sister go through what she had to go through. And she was always going through that. But I think we all kind of I realized with you is even regarding both of you or whatever we're going through, we always move forward. Everybody used to tell me with my oldest daughter, you can't do this because she has, her immune system's low. You can't be taking her to theme parks. You can't take her to the mall. You can't have her do this. I was like, are you out of your minds? I'm going to do the opposite. I want her to build her immune system. She can't play sports like this because of I'm like, no, she'll play 3-4 sports a year if that's what she wants to do. She wants to do fitness. She's in fitness. Just like when this daughter, Demi, she wanted to do modeling at a young age. She kept begging me, and then we ended up doing modeling. But the thing was, hopefully, you program your kids. I do all these podcasts and videos on the programming of your because really, no matter what, your kids are going to pick up who you are while they're growing up. I mean, they're going to go their own way, but you teach them language, you teach them your food habits, everything, right? Wouldn't you say? We were just talking about that. Do you think the way you were kind of raised helped you through this, or?
I mean, I was always, not to be cocky, but like even as a kid, I've always just, I feel like, been the type of person to like not sit around and cry about things.
Yeah, confidence too, right?
Yeah, I think it's just, for me, it's like, why would I let this stop me if it's something that I know is manageable?
Right.
So knowing it's manageable and knowing people who do manage it and are perfectly fine, it's like, I think it would have been harder if I didn't know anybody with type 1 diabetes and it just happened. And it was like, what is this? I have no clue what this is, even though I really didn't have a clue what it was.
Right.
A lot of people don't. I didn't know before I had it. Like, I knew a little bit, but knowing that I'd be okay, like, everything's a state of mind. Like, everything's in your head.
Absolutely.
And so you can't be thinking negative thoughts about things because then it turns out negative. I've always believed that you put positivity into the universe will give you positivity back. And so I think thinking positive through the whole process definitely brought me positive results on, like, how to handle things. Now it's like a snap of the fingers, but my friend that's diabetic is in the hospital consistently.
Why?
And because she's very negative about it. She hates her diabetes and all that
gotcha.
stuff. And so, which I understand. I mean,
right, everybody takes it on their own.
Who wants to be like, yes, love diabetes? Like, no, but you have to take everything in as it is.
Right, it can become a burden. I'm not saying it's a blessing, but
yeah, it could either be a burden or it could just be something that is a part of who you are. That you need. It's something that whoever has it needs to accept.
Yeah, and I was talking to my father about this, not to bring him back into play, and even my mother, for instance, and I discussed things with her, is I always wondered, say I got what she got, whatever issue. My identity is so wrapped up in food and Italian food and all these things, and I always thought, like, if I had to change my diet, because the truth is you had to change your diet.
I changed my diet for sure, but it's not like I can't have ice cream, I can't have a slice of cake.
Right.
I still eat what I want when I want. It's just more in moderation. I'm not going to go for that large ice cream cone in a cup at Dairy Queen anymore with sprinkles and extra whatevers.
Right.
I'm going to now just get a small, and I mean, it's still enough for me.
Right.
Like, everything, like, I can still eat what I want when I want as long as I'm controlling it. If I'm not controlling it, that's a whole different story. But as long as you're in control of your body and what you're doing, if you're giving the right amounts of insulin, if you're making sure you're mixing a fast-acting with a slow-acting carb, you'll be fine. Even if you got it, you'd be fine, I could tell you. Anybody would be fine. Type 1 diabetes is not the hardest thing in the world. I can tell you that right now. It's not easy, but it's not the hardest thing.
Right. And I was like, I would die, like, in my mind, because I don't have it. I'd be like, oh my god, I would die if I had to regulate my food portions, what I eat. I'm older too, but just from a self-centered point of view, I'm just
for sure. At first, it's hard. Like, at first, it's hard because you're like, ooh, like, all my friends are.
Well, how about the list I made you? So I
still use it.
I have a list.
Well, I memorized most of it actually now, but
the first thing I did, I freaked out because all our favorite restaurants and everything. And our foods, I knew she liked. I wanted her to be prepared because I'm not as knowledgeable about anything related to what you do like your mother is. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. Even
she's not really knowledgeable either.
Well, she's always been a lot better than me. And then what she went through with our other daughter, she was amazing with all her meds and everything she did, putting all that together. But my ex-wife, as far as that goes, much more advanced, just much quicker with all that. All I can offer my daughter when she got diabetes was a list of all our favorite kind of junk foods and desserts. Obviously calories, sugar, carbs.
We did carbs. So I count carbs.
So I still had that list because I was freaking out. I couldn't contribute anything. And sometimes being a parent, and I'm not a doctor obviously, but I didn't know what to do. When you get in these positions a lot of times in your life with your kids or with colleagues or friends that or family members that get sick, you could do the things you want to do, but sometimes you feel like you're not doing enough, or I don't know what I'm doing. So that was kind of as I look back, it's kind of ridiculous that I made a cheat sheet for your junk food that we like to eat together.
No, I used it for a while too.
We shouldn't have been even eating all those foods, but I'm like, wait a minute, we're going to probably still eat these foods, right? Like it was almost part of our identity. Anyways, funny stuff. All right, let me see what time we're at. So I just want to do a podcast with my daughter. I haven't done one yet. I thought this would be an interesting subject. We just had Mexican food, and I said, would you mind doing this with us? Because I think a lot of people, one, if you know me, people ask me all the time about my daughter, Demi, how she's doing. Family members, friends, colleagues, they see her on Facebook with me and different areas. And when we were younger, when I was younger, I was with my oldest daughter a lot more for the first probably 5-6 years of their life, just because of we were just going to the doctor more. I would travel to Chicago with her more. And as time went on, then I kind of ended up spending more time with my youngest daughter because we had a lot of things in common as well, which included modeling and fashion. I even wrote a book called The Model Bible, which was based on my past experience being a model when I was younger and then when she went into modeling. So I incorporated kind of 2 different generations of what modeling, how to help people through it. So it was like from being a parent, and because of my daughter was you were a very successful young model, taking it from the perspective of a young person. So I had that, that type of knowledge. So I made a book that's kind of loosely based on my daughter, which is quite interesting, right? And then as time went on, but what I was saying too is when you look at one daughter as being one way and then the other being the other, and it was just a very interesting dynamic. Not that you're nearly the same, because they couldn't be more opposite, but what was kind of interesting is what they both went through, or what they're both going through, right? From a parent's perspective, not yours. But, and thank God they got each other. And then they have 2 little brothers too, right? So I think they're amazing older sisters to teach their younger brothers what type of person they are, right? And teach them what you guys are going through, because everybody's going through something. So, all right, I'm going to wrap it up there. You want to say anything?
Save the turtles. Please stop using plastic straws.
What are you
Get some metal, please.
Are you from Santa Barbara now?
No, we just really need to save these turtles.
What? Are these turtles eating straws?
Yeah, they're dying.
What are you talking about? I see all these turtles. They're running into the ocean with the fat.
No, they're dying. They're dying because of straws. So we need to get some metal straws. Please just go on Amazon.
Plastic. I thought paper.
No, you would get because the paper melts in your mouth, it gets soggy.
They got the new hard ones though. In Santa Barbara, anyway. Who cares? I used to live in California. There's a big issue with these straws now. Here, we're gonna go have Starbucks. I don't even drink straws or use them.
I use straws a lot.
We're on straws now. We went from diabetes to straws. I do love turtles though.
Yeah, you gotta get metal straws. No more plastic, please. Just go on Amazon, get your free 2-day shipping. Get your metal straws.
We had turtles. We used to have all these different pets. We had a bunch of cats when they were younger. I don't know how many cats. And then they kept having babies. But then we had this huge monster fish tank that we had started off with 3 or 4 baby turtles. Do you remember how big they got? They outgrew the tank. I had to let them go. And then my father had a monster fish tank. I think this is one of the biggest in Central Florida. It was actually him and Shaq's, because they had to have specialty people come out and clean his tank. You can actually walk around his fish tank. That's how big it was. And then he'd have turtles in there. They were the funnest to watch, how they went up and down. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, you can also check me out on YouTube. It's just Rich Celenza. I'm posting up videos on my Mastering Self-Confidence program. It's to help men find the woman or women of their dreams, even if they've been through a bad breakup or divorce. I also help with fashion, hygiene, fitness, and grooming on there as well. And I also travel all over North America, so I put up videos where to kind of eat, specialty places, as in restaurants, coffee houses, even gyms. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm on there as well. So you can check me out there as well. All right, that's it. I'm going to wrap it up there. Anything else? All right, take care. And if you're traveling, safe travels.